Not everything was nice in the epidemic, and one of the most ugly things we saw is the attempt at scapegoating minorities, particularly religious minorities. We saw this in different parts of the world. In India, a Muslim missionary movement called Tablighi Jamaat was singled out for a missionary meeting attended by thousands of people in Delhi, who may later have spread the virus in different parts of the country. And that led to an exceptional hate campaign against Tabligh and against Muslims in general. The governor of one Indian state, who happens to be a Hindu cleric, called the virus Corona Jihad, or the Muslim virus, and the Muslim enemies of humanity. The international leader of Tablighi Jamaat is currently indicted for homicide. Now, what can we learn from this incident? Of course, gatherings during the first days of the epidemics were dangerous. Of course, religious gatherings are no exception. Of course, people were infected because of religious gatherings, but that happened for everybody, majorities and minorities. Hindus themselves hold a festival in India at the same time of the Muslim festival. Secular meetings also took place, sport events. But the Tabligh were singled out more than anybody else in India because of a pre-existing anti-Muslim feeling and a particular hate campaign going on from years against the Tablighi Jamaat, which is a very visible missionary movement. Let's mention a second example. In Mulhouse, France, an evangelical church called the Christian Open Door organized an international meeting. In the first days, France was aware of the epidemics, but was not yet locked down. Thousands of people attended. Some were from Africa, and may even have spread the virus to some African countries. Again, the campaign against this church was exceptional. The BBC reported that children of members of this Open Door church can no longer interact with other children because they are bullied. The church has been assaulted. There have been death threats to the pastors. And once again, let's analyze what happened. Did the gathering spread the virus? Yes, it did. But on the very same day, President Macron visited the same city, Mulhouse, and the local media described this visit as a bain de foule, a crowd bath. And you see pictures of thousands of citizens of Mulhouse greeting Macron with no masks, no distancing, and apparently no problem. Put it simply, that was before the lockdown, and it was at a time when gatherings were still permitted. Another example, in Italy, a large Catholic community, the Neo-Catechumenate, organized a retreat in the region of Naples. That was quite tragic. the virus spread there. One of the priests who organized the retreat actually died. What happened next is the governor of Campania launched a campaign against this group, calling it a cult, plague spreaders, but he forgot that again, on the very same day of this retreat, which gathered some 2,000 people, the governor had authorized a football game, Naples versus Torino AC, which had gathered 24,000 people. So again, are religious gathering spreading viruses? Yes, they do, but they are not the only one. And the religious minorities, which may not be extremely popular, even the Catholic neo-catechumenate as several opponents, are scapegoated. That happened in history. In 1349, 2,000 Jews were burned at stake in Strasbourg during the plague as alleged plague spreaders. John Calvin, during his theocracy in Geneva, burned religious dissidents during the plague, claiming they were responsible for the plague. Catholics burned Protestants, Protestants burned Catholics, Jews were often the victims. I will now mention what was the worst episode of scapegoating. It happened in South Korea, where the 31st patient who tested positive to the virus, patient 31, happened to be a member of an unpopular religious minority, the Shincheonji Church, a Christian new religious movement. Now, patient 31 had been hospitalized for a car accident and diagnosed with a cold attributed to the fact that the window of her hospital room has been left open. So the hospital authorized her to go home. She went to a large Shincheonji gatherings and set in motion a chain of events where thousands of Shincheonji members were infected. Then she was more and more sick, reported back to the hospital, and finally was tested and diagnosed with the COVID-19. That was the opportunity for launching an enormous campaign against Shincheonji. The government asked the list of all the members, got it, claimed it was not complete, raided the premises of Shincheonji, found their lists compared to the list they had received. They were more or less the same. Minor mistakes are always possible. But notwithstanding this, the campaign went on. There are now legal action aimed at dissolving Shincheonji, even dissolving their humanitarian organization, nothing to do with their religious activities, and to prosecute for homicide its leaders. Now again, what happened? Did the case of patient 31 affect what was happening? Yes. But was scapegoating Shincheonji right? No. And why this happened? Because there was a pre-existing opposition to Shincheonji and other groups labeled as cults. So in conclusion, what did we learn during the pandemic? That groups engaged in discriminating against minorities promptly seized the opportunity to scapegoat them and denounce them as responsible for the virus. That may happen again in other crises, and so for the post-virus world, we need to be vigilant, protect religious minorities, and expose anti-cult and other radical extremist groups promoting discrimination and hate. Thank you.